Welcome to Friday, TGIF. Also, it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. On this 14th day of February 2025, we're going to be talking about Arctic waves, then an Arctic push. We're going to be looking at a series of Pacific waves come through today. Another one will push its way through over the weekend. More windy areas and mild temperatures along and east of the divide, windy along I-25 and I-80. Mountain snow showers, a good chunk of snow fell in the high country in many areas along and west of the divide. Yesterday afternoon and last night, we had some mudslides in California from some heavy rain there. And these Pacific systems will bring more mountain snow, but also over the weekend, there'll be patches of snow on the plains. Not a lot, nothing to write home about, but if traveling in the Intermountain West this weekend, you'll have some travel challenges with these Pacific waves, whether you're trying to get over a mountain pass, but also some snow across the lower elevations. Yesterday, we talked about this detached Arctic vortex meandering westward, pushing up against the continental divide. That still looks to be on the table. We'll show you that here in a moment. Now, as we take a look at the photos coming on in, beautiful shots as we kind of had a break in the weather yesterday. So some good vistas, but also you're going to notice in these photos, thin, high layer clouds kind of getting thicker the further west you go, like here near Cedar City, Utah, near Rocky Mountain Park, Colorado yesterday, into the south central areas of Colorado, that Pacific moisture deepening and increasing. And of course, in the inversions, we've been having a lot of steam coming out of power plants looking like this in the cold air in the mornings. And another beautiful shot of that full moon over Mount Massive, Colorado. And a lot of vistas of ice and more optics, halos and luminance from those high, thin clouds coming in and increasing with that Pacific moisture once again. Satellite image is pretty impressive this morning, showing a wave trains of low across the Pacific moving into the western United States. So they're all lined up here while there's Arctic air up here. So there's a good mixture of different air masses all going to be working together. And across the United States, there's a lot of winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings in effect. Yay, finally, some snow for the mountains of Arizona and New Mexico and southern Colorado. Boy, they've had a dry winter down there, but they're getting into the action now. And you can see all the pink and purple. The brown is for wind, more winter weather in the Great Lakes, flooding concerns down here as these Pacific waves march on through. Notice there's not nearly as much blue today in the map, as the Pacific air going to bring a small and very brief moderation in temperatures into the region. This is why westerly flow pushing in that Pacific moisture. By Sunday morning, notice the change. Notice what happens up here. This blue area with those two lows splits. Big split there. One low heads up into northeastern Canada, and the other one gets left behind over there into Manitoba. And what will happen is that detachment will allow cold air to sit over this region right here. There's a lot of snow cover, and the cold air is going to be very deep, as you'll see here in a moment. Between now and Sunday, this is what the Pacific waves will do with precipitation. You can see the gradient heaviest in the west, getting lighter as you head east, as the mountain ranges tend to pick up the better moisture. But we're going to get a little bit of snow getting along and east of the divide, especially into Montana, the I-80 corridor of Wyoming, lesser amounts in the plains, but a little bit here in eastern Colorado. And that's what the snowfall between now and Sunday looks like. So you see the mountains are going to do very well, but adjacent to the mountains and the northern plains, you're going to be getting some accumulating snow between now and Sunday. As we get into Monday night and Tuesday, we then get this stretching of this Arctic vortex west to east generally, and this tail gets left behind. And it's this Arctic tail right here where very cold air will be over Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, then right along the U.S.-Canadian border by Monday into early Tuesday morning. By Wednesday morning, you can see there's a little bit of that detachment again, but also see how it pushes back to the west. So the best analogy to give you is the Arctic air that's out here will get pushed back westward and will try to climb the higher terrain of the continental divide. How far it gets westward, I think, is something that we'll need to watch. But this is a deep Arctic air mass especially as you get off the Rockies and out into the plains, and we're going to see temperatures plummet once again in the nation's heartland. If you take a look at the temperature anomalies today, you can see that push of Pacific air comes out, bringing moderating temperatures to many areas. Still some cold air stuck in the South Platte Valley there. But you can see the Arctic air kind of retreats briefly. By tomorrow, though, the cold air spills back south as the Pacific wave will allow it to come south. By Sunday, it gets a little bit more deep. The Arctic air gets further south, very cold down here into Texas by the weekend. Then you can see a lot of purple as we go through these maps. This is by 11 a.m. Anytime you see 18 Zulu right now, that's 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So you can see the 30 degree to 50 degree temperature anomaly covers a lot of territory from Alberta to Wisconsin, getting all the way down into northern Kansas and basically along Interstate 70. So the cold air is going to kind of get piled up in an axis that goes northwest to southeast. And keep in mind, the terrain altitude is very low here. That's where the Arctic air wants to go. Arctic air always goes to the lowest point. It's like water. It's going to go to the lowest point of gravity. Then on the edges, the Arctic air is very thin. That's why you see it getting right up to the mountain ranges and kind of not being able to get over. And that's going to be a theme here. So if you look at overnight low temperatures that will happen overnight Sunday into Monday morning, these are in Fahrenheit. These are not wind chills. So you can see we've got some minus 40s right here. That does not include wind chill. And the sub-zero temperatures get into northern Nebraska, northeastern Wyoming again by Monday morning. By Tuesday, 11 a.m., the anomaly gets deep into Texas, pushes further into the Great Lakes, and we still have that northwest to southeast axis of where the cold air is backed up. And if you're right in the heart of it, which is going to be right here, you're going to be the coldest. There are the temperatures by the early part of Tuesday. So you can see 20s, 30s below zero. The minus temperatures get a little bit further south. The anomaly by Wednesday gets more north-south, a little bit more east-west. This is very impressive for middle February, especially for this part of the nation here. This is very, very cold even for February. And when you take a look at temperatures, the overnight lows by Wednesday morning are very impressive. We got some minus 20s in northeastern Wyoming, sitting up along the Pine Ridge here into Nebraska. You're looking at some extremely cold temperatures, and the sub-zero temperatures may get to Amarillo. We'll see. The Arctic air on the boundaries here will be very thin. You get a few hundred feet off the ground, it won't be nearly that cold, but it's going to be deep enough maybe to get into the Front Range of Colorado, at least getting a little bit below zero. So livestock interest, especially anyone in calving and lambing operations, especially sort of in this area right here, you're going to have to endure probably 5 days of sub-zero temperatures, extremely cold wind chills, and there's going to be some snow. And we'll show you here in a minute. And actually the snow is going to help maybe moderate temperatures a bit in here because of cloud cover. By Thursday morning, notice we still have sub-zero temperatures by Thursday morning in many areas, but it's starting to get more thin on the western edges. So severe cold, basically Sunday through Thursday, especially for you folks in this region right here. And if you take a look, step back and look at the whole lower 48, by Thursday morning, we have possible negative temperatures getting all the way into northwest Arkansas, all the way into northern Oklahoma. And for the 20th of February, you're probably going to break some records or tie them. This is the temperature anomaly by Friday. It's now coalescing as the Arctic air is going to be more, at least the anomaly, is going to be more south across the southern tier of the nation. If you were to take a look at temperature anomalies from today through next Friday for the next 7 days, it looks like this. So sorry, folks, in that axis right there. This is the next wave of moisture. We talked about that maybe pushing up against the western edge of the Arctic boundary that might keep it from getting too cold. Well, there's going to be some clouds and some snow and some what we call overrunning, because there will be a Pacific component on the western edge of this Arctic boundary. In the middle of the deepest Arctic air right here, the moisture is not going to be able to get that direction. but there's going to be some snow along the Pine Ridge. So near Casper to Douglas to Lusk to Shadron to Alliance here, there could be quite a bit of snow, low water content, but quite a bit of snow as there's that collision of air masses right there, then more for the mountains. That's what the snowfall looks like between Monday and Thursday. If you put both systems together from this weekend through next Thursday, you'll see some pretty impressive snow totals getting out into the plains again and up into the high country. And look at Montana. It's almost like this part of Montana is forming a glacier with what's gone on here since early January. When we take a look at when there's relief coming, well, we do see relief. By the 24th of February, this is really by the weekend after this one, we see the Arctic air easing and notice a westerly flow. Okay, so once we get past this week, there's going to be maybe 5-7 days of much more milder, less intense cold and kind of a break in the action before we get into March. We talked about March yesterday, and there's one graphic I forgot to show you yesterday. What I'm showing you here is the 500 millibar projection for each day of the next 32 days. So basically this takes us all the way up till the end of March. Where you see yellow, you're generally going to have a ridge of high pressure. Where you see the blues, you're generally going to see where low pressure is going to want to be more often. So this is a very coarse look at the overall general pattern at 500 millibars, but it shows you where the structure and where the systems are going to be. And what's really noticeable is that more often than not, if you watch as we go through this, that area up there is in yellow where you're going to want to have high pressure. Notice that the western United States for most of the month of March is either going to be white or blue, which basically means you're going to have more often than not low pressure systems wanting to kind of be in this area right here and really go across the nation. So this lends credence to what we discussed yesterday, which is that once we have this warm up next weekend into about the 1st of March or so, once we get into March and it gets more mature into the month, this persistent high pressure ridge near the Aleutians will allow low pressure to march across the nation during the month of March. Also, something new to pass along, the folks who put out the long-range forecasts for La Niñas and El Niños put out a new prediction for the middle of this month, right on through early fall, and you can see the La Niña falling off and dropping sharply and going away. It's ending the La Niña a little bit quicker than the last update. Have yourself a great weekend and a happy Valentine's Day. We'll see you Monday.